My question for both of you, because Dave has Dak Prescott, J.J. McCarthy, and Jalen Milroe, which I'm assuming will be a super flex thing. Jamie has Justin Fields, Drake Maye, and Trevor Lawrence. I mean, if it were me, I would say Justin Fields, Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, Drake Maye. Who did I draft? Even Tua. I guess the question, like, who don't we like? Which late round quarterbacks don't we like? How do you even choose? I think Justin Herbert, Jordan Love. I don't even know what order it's going to be in, but I remember yesterday in the draft we did. All right, I'm going to take, Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, another one I definitely want to take. It's like, all right, I'm going to take any one of these 7 guys. So I'm just going to keep waiting and waiting. So, Jamie, as you make that decision, are there guys that you zero in on? Are there guys that you just cross off the list? Because I know there are going to be a lot of late round quarterbacks that we like.
I think it comes down to, if you're taking one of these guys as your starter and the only quarterback you're drafting, or if you're planning to take them as your second quarterback with the hope that they hit it big and you can either pivot to that quarterback or you're trying to trade that quarterback. And so in the case of who's got the safer floor of some of the guys that you mentioned, obviously I think you look at Dak and what he's done. And I think it's 3 of the last 5 years, 4 of the last 5 years. When he's been healthy, he's been very good fantasy quarterback. And now we just got a new weapon. If you're talking about, shooting for the stars with, one of these guys that's going to use their legs, you mentioned Richardson, obviously Fields. I think Drake Maye deserves to be in that conversation based on what he showed last year. But there's a lot of questions, so those aren't exactly the ones I want to go into the season with as my only quarterback. But it, again, depends on what your league is and how you draft. So I did a draft. And I think, did I take Fields in the half PPR draft yesterday? I did 2 drafts back to back. So I'm a little.
You did.
I did a draft with the Fantasy Pros guys. I know in the Fantasy Pros draft, I drafted Caleb Williams. And it was interesting because using their mock draft product, and it was 4 of us drafting and then auto draft using their draft simulator. It's a pretty cool product. The idea was I took Caleb Williams, even though I have Dak Prescott ranked higher, it's 4 points for passing touchdowns in that mock draft. So I took Caleb Williams, and then all the safe guys went. Dak went, Purdy went, forget who else. Herbert might have went also. Goff went, and then I just took Drake Maye, and so just went with 2 questionable guys. If you want to categorize them, but so much upside as we're expecting to see. With better receiving cores and better coaching, and all those things that go along with them. So I think it comes down to, again, what you're looking at. And I think there were three of the 4 of us took 2 quarterbacks in that draft. And I went back and looked at the free agents. Tua was a free agent. There was somebody else that stood out to me that was maybe Jordan Love or CJ Stroud, one of those guys. If there's going to be those caliber of quarterbacks, Stafford was free agent. If there's going to be those caliber of quarterbacks on the waiver wire, you don't necessarily have to draft to, so you can still get a good number 2 option or a safer option if you're shooting for, one of these high upside type of guys. So know your league. If you want to go back to the, drafting rules or whatever you framed it as, know your league, know the type of, player or fantasy managers you're drafting with. And if everybody's going to take 2, it's in your best interest to probably, pair up, one of these risky quarterbacks with somebody that has a little bit safer floor. But, if you draft a Burrow or Hurts, I don't know if it's necessarily a priority to even try and waste a draft pick on another quarterback where you can try and maybe get something that can, be more of a home run at another position.
Yeah. I did draft Burrow, and then I drafted Trevor Lawrence, I believe, with my 14th, my last pick. And then Jamie took Drake Maye after. I just think that this is these quarterbacks are so good that even if I have Burrow, I don't necessarily feel like I have to take a backup, but I'm fine doing it if there's nobody on the board I really like. So, Dave, you had Dak Prescott and J.J. McCarthy and Jalen Milroe on here, but that obviously needs some explaining here because there's not telling people to take J.J. McCarthy over Trevor Lawrence or anything like that.
Not yet, but we know the track record of Vikings quarterbacks with Kevin O'Connell. 51 games, 27 times a quarterback has had at least 22 fantasy points. That's in 6-point per passing leagues, at least 8 games per year. And if O'Connell can work magic with Kirk Cousins, turning him from a mid QB into a quality fantasy starter, did the exact same thing with Sam Darnold, then I think there's a chance that it could happen with JJ McCarthy, and you could get him after a lot of the names that we just reeled off for this big old group of quarterbacks that have high upside. Dak, to me, just makes a ton of sense as a great sleeper. We've seen it. Jamie mentioned it. It was 2021. He had 24 fantasy points per game, 23.9 in his final 9 games of the year after that. In 2023, 29 fantasy points per game in 11 games after the bye. That's when he was hyper targeting CeeDee Lamb. And then last year was really a bad year. He only had 20.7 in his first 5 games. All of Dak's games with at least 20 plus involved Ferguson having at least 11. Well, now he's got Pickens on top of Ferguson, and in addition to CeeDee Lamb. And I've got questions about how good that Dallas defense is going to be. They've got a lot of injured players on that side of the ball. Could be a lot of high scoring games. It makes all the sense in the world to go after anybody with a late round pick at quarterback who's got huge upside. It helps when said quarterback has demonstrated the upside. And Dak Prescott's done that. And the worst case scenario is that Dak is over the hill and I cut him. And there's a quarterback, like Jamie mentioned, it could be Tua, it could be McCarthy, that's sitting on the waiver wire. After a couple of weeks of Dak, you say, I've had enough. I can't win with him. And you go and you make a change. And you hope that the guy that you make a change with catches on.
Here's where Dak Prescott has finished on a per-game basis in his last 6 seasons in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. Per game, Dak Prescott has been number 4, number 7, number 9, number 2, and number 21.
Right.
It's amazing and pretty similar in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues too. 2 concerns, I would say, for Dak. It's all kind of related. One would be, it's all the same. He's 32, or he will be in July. Mm-hmm. He barely ran last year. 1.6 rush attempts per game. And he took a lot of sacks last year. So I guess I just wonder if he's at the stage in his career where he's lost his mobility. But you figure you offset that by gaining George Pickens. So I have a follow-up question with Dak Prescott. If you drafted, let's say, Baker Mayfield, or someone that you feel good about, but maybe you still feel like I want to back up. You take Dak Prescott, or do you take Fields or Richardson, one of the guys who can run for a lot of yards, or Drake Maye?
Fields or Richardson. I mean, I think you're like Dak is the guy you want to pair with Fields or Richardson. You know, that's the type of player that you're looking at. You know, so
can I just illustrate that Dak Prescott has huge upside when I just read that he's been like a top 4 finisher per game in 3 of the last 6 seasons?
You did, but you also just mentioned the potential pitfalls of the most recent season that he's coming off of, when he missed half the season with a hamstring injury that I believe did require surgery, or
yes,
was a pretty brutal one. So I like the upside of Dak. He's a top 10 quarterback for me. I said that when they made the Pickens deal. You know, I just thought that based, again, what his track record has been, and now he has, 2 pretty strong, pass catchers, 3 if you want to throw Ferguson in there. Dave mentioned the defense. The bigger concern for me is the run game and lack thereof. So,
I should have mentioned that.
I think the scenario for Dak Prescott is right in front of him to be in a lot of games where he has to throw the ball, and leaning on the strength of this offense, which is the receiving core at this point. So there's a lot to like about it. That being said, if I'm looking at, I drafted Baker Mayfield, I'm thinking of the quarterbacks I have ranked after Mahomes. So it's Baker, it's Bo Nix, it's Prescott, it's Caleb Williams. I'm looking at it specifically with Baker, Nix, and Dak. Like, I want to pair them with the more mobile quarterbacks that, if they hit, and we've talked about this with the what we hope could happen. I forget the name of the show. Heath had the category, Richardson and Fields. Again, I put Maye in that scenario also. Like, if these guys hit, because they'll be close to 700 plus rushing yards and hopefully over 4,000 passing yards, like, that's hard to find. And so Fields has done that, with his legs. Richardson has, shown us glimpses of doing that with his legs, if he can, win the job. And even maybe Daniel Jones deserves that, because he did that with his legs that one season too, when he was 3,700. Obviously, Maye, was on pace to be the third best rushing quarterback last year, had he played a full season. So there's a lot to like about what those guys can be. But if you're looking for the safe quarterback and another safe quarterback, I just don't think that's the right way to draft. As good as Dak can be with his upside, there's just not, I think, the same ceiling that those other guys can get to if they hit.